Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what is normal in your country but seems weird to the rest of the world? Being middle class with a property having a 6-wall, electric fencing linked to an alarm, automated gate and garage doors, with security clamps over the gate motor to prevent theft of the motor, security gates over every door, burglar bars, and a house alarm system with infrared sensors linked to armed response with a reaction time of under 3 to 4 minutes. South Africa. Yep. Everyone rags on the US for using imperial, but can we talk for a second about how weird we are here in the UK for using both inconsistently? You buy a pint of milk or beer, but a litre of Coke and 25 millilitres of whiskey. People know how many miles to the gallon their cars get, but you buy fuel at pence per litre. You watch the weather forecast and the temperature is in Celsius but the wind speed is in miles per hour. Most people can tell you their weight in kilograms, and their height in feet, and if they can't give you kilograms they can probably give you stone instead, which is even older than pounds, which nobody uses as a unit of measurement, probably because of the confusion between pounds and pound. It's a glorious mess. Canada has this same problem, distance is measured in metric but height and weight is in imperial. There are lots of other cases. Distance is measured in time. In my friend's country, Easter is when gangs of boys roam the countryside, pouring water over girls and beating them, gently, with sticks. The girls then have to thank them for it. I thought that was pretty weird. Edit, she's from Slovakia. Girls on cold, spring morning in wet t-shirts. Yes, this still happens, for obvious reasons. The beating not so much, at least not outside staged anthropology museum shows. Anyway, I hated when my grandpa would sprinkle us on the Easter Monday with some cologne, that smelled horrible, in the spirit of the tradition. Hated it so much. Now, him being gone for years, I look fondly on the memory. The beating still happens. I'm from Czech Republic, which is pretty much the same as Slovakia culture-wise, and the beating, it's more like lightly brushing them, still happens. Especially in a rural area like where I live. See Czechia and Slovakia woohoo. Also it supposes to keep women and girls young and healthy. Well, they had to come up with something. Some random drunk old guy hit my ass with a stick in Prague on Easter 2 years ago. That explains it. Leaving your baby alone outside for their nap, even if it rains or snows. Sparta. Norway, but it's common in all of Scandinavia. That's how we create Vikings. Edit, yes. This applies to all of the Nordic countries, York, Minnesota, Ireland and Russia according to the comments. Also, rip inbox. This is also the normal thing to do in Denmark. All midday naps are outside in a pram, same if you are at a cafe, it's quite normal to leave your child outside in their pram, as long as you can see them. Where I lived in Copenhagen, there was a nursery school in the same building. The windows to the room where the children napped were just round portholes without glass. It's considered that important for napping babies to be exposed to the fresh air. There was a great thing to prevent people crawling in or out the windows. This was a modern building from this century. My friend would put her baby into her snowsuit and then place the baby in the fleece-lined pram. Then a down blanket, a pram cover, and a hat. She'd then wheel the pram outside in the winter with just the baby's eyes and nose sticking out. Reminds me of a beautiful comment I read a while ago about this subject by /u/ithc. My daughter was born in Copenhagen, Denmark, Frederiksberg actually. We lived there for a few years after she was born. We learned from our Danish friends to let her sleep outside in the back garden of our flat in her pram during snowfalls. We kept an eye on her from the window. It was very soothing to her, and she would sleep very soundly. Sometimes when we would go out to check on her we would find her awake but quiet, just watching the snow falling around her. Some of my fondest memories of her time as a baby. Followed by, it's such a pure experience of love that it makes my heart ache to recall it. That was almost 18 years ago, but I still have crystal clear memories of her lying in the pram with snowflakes falling all around her little face. She would turn her head and smile at me for a moment and go back to looking up at the snow. I will never forget it. https://r/todilred/comments/a/YW63m. We have matrimonial ads in newspapers and sites to find grooms and brides, which I think don't happen in Western countries, and they find it strange. The ads are mostly published by parents. It's like Tinder supervised by parents. India. Asterisk idea. We have that in Germany. It's not for marriage, especially not arranged marriage, but more for general dating. It's old people Tinder. That was in the US too. I remember browsing those as a child 25 plus years ago to see what people said about themselves. It's also the plot of the classic American song Escape, which is more commonly referred to by its famous chorus phrase if you like pina coladas. In university we thumped the tables to applaud our professors. Instead of actually applauding. Or doing nothing. During my exchange semester everyone not from Germany was looking at me confused why I did this. In my country we don't applaud our professors, at least not in the one I go to. It has only happened once, when the lecture was especially interesting and professionally done. In my experience it's done for guest lecturers, or at the end of the last lecture of the term. Definitely not at the end of every regular lecture though. A short while ago they stopped selling alcohol after 10 p.m. At some stores you couldn't even get non-alcoholic beer. What's weird though is that wine is not considered alcoholic drink so you can buy it anytime. Welcome to Moldova. Wow. Such gold. Much thanks. In certain US states you can't buy any alcohol, in stores, after 8 p.m. or on Sundays. Georgia, the US state, just revised the law to allow alcohol purchases in grocery stores only after 12:30 p.m. on Sundays. In restaurants, only after 11 a.m. on Sundays. It used to be not long ago no purchases on Sundays in the state. Heck, even some counties are still dry counties where you can't buy alcohol at all any time. Whole restaurants cheering when a plate or glass is smashed, UK. Once was in a Canadian bar/restaurant on holiday and a waiter dropped a tray of glasses. The local looked horrified when I was out of my seat screaming "Whey!" Edit, definitely seems more of a European thing than Canadian and American. Canadian, would be horrified haha. Really? I assumed that was a universal thing. British, so it might be. I've heard lots of stories about people visiting places outside the UK and it being incredibly awkward when they start the lone "Whey!", so I doubt it's universal. Edit, if you want to know what it sounds like, Stephen Fry introduces it in the Welcome to Heathrow advert at some point. Being left off of maps. Kiwi. Tasmanians also got the shit end of that stick, at times. This could be a great Hollywood plotline. Something apocalyptic happens and for hundreds of years humanity is in chaos. Then finally someone escapes on a ship and hits New Zealand which has magically escaped the global chaos and they're like wow. This place wasn't on our maps. The road to El Zeladu. Strangers sitting totally naked skin to skin in a steamy room heated to +80 to +100 degrees Celsius and us having competitions on who can last the longest in there. I miss Finland. I went to Finland once after the World Scout Jamboree in 2011. Lovely country. Went to an indoor skiing center under a hotel, which was basically just a loop you could do but it was weird. You walked into a hotel, went down in the lift and you were suddenly in a room surrounded by snow. Also went to a public swimming pool. It was odd seeing everyone not give a shit walking around naked. Saunas are great though. And as a consequence of that, having seen 90% of my friends naked, regardless of gender. Also co-workers. This was my favorite thing about your country. I sat next to my friend's uncle in her wedding sauna and it wasn't even weird. Well, maybe a tiny bit weird. But not really. We chatted and sweated. He thought the funny dancing we did at the wedding was weird. Which, given that my friend married a Scotsman and I ended up teaching ceilidh dances to drunk Finns, he had a point. The best bit was swimming in the lake afterwards. I want to go back to Finland. Wedding sauna. Now that is different. Drinking beer before 12 o'clock and seeing it as part of the culture. UK too. No judgment. I was speaking with a Yank and they said that the UK is like an airport, it's somehow socially acceptable to drink at any time of the day. Never thought about it that way, but he's right. Putting cable ties, branches, fake eyes at sea on helmets, buckets and hats in springtime to scare away the birds. Magpies are vicious bastards. Bribing them with fairy bread works sometimes. Putting broken glass bottles on the walls around your house so burglars can't jump it and rob you. I moved to Canada and they don't even have walls around the houses. All of Latin America. Yup. Chile has neighborhoods with fences like these described. Yeah, I'm Canadian and no one would even lock their doors when I was growing up in a Vancouver suburb. Tax not included in advertised price. Yeah, I find this so weird. I could never get used to this when I lived in Ontario. I'm British. Dreaded each trip to the checkout because I'd never quite know how much I'd be spending. US. What other places do this? Canada does this too.